There is a truth inside you that no one ever dared to pronounce aloud. A truth that trembles, como a small hidden animal curled behind your ribs, waiting for the moment someone finally notices it. Breathing, you have carried it for decades with the same quiet discipline you use to fold clothes or turn off lights before sleeping. A discipline almost no one aggrades because no one sees what it costs to keep standing in a world that rarely asks if you are tired. It begins in the morning, when you open your eyes, and for a brief second before memory returns, you feel the weightless peace of someone who has not remembered their own story yet. But then life wakes up inside your chest, and it arrives with a heaviness that no doctor could measure, no friend could fully understand, no mirror could reflect with honesty. It is the heaviness of existing while everyone around you continues, as if your inner climate does not matter, as if the storms you hide were just passing moods and not the silent architecture of your survival. There are moments when you look at a room that used to be full of voices and realize that the furniture has become your most faithful witness, the way a chair waits for you in the same position, the way a lamp holds the same light, even on nights when you cannot bear to switch it on. You tell yourself that this is normal, that life naturally becomes quieter with time, but deep down, there is a secret ache that insists that something precious slipped away without warning. You remember conversations that once seemed endless laughter, that once felt like proof that you existed in someone else's memory. Plans that once looked certain, but now feel like postcards from another lifetime. There is a truth the world never told you, that aging is not only about the body bending slowly, it is also about watching your own story drift from the center to the margins until you feel like a footnote in a book you once believed you were writing. Sometimes this truth appears in small accidental moments, like when you hear a song you loved in your 20s and realize that no one in the room understands what that melody meant to you, or when you see your reflection in a shop window and for a heartbeat cannot connect that face with the soul you carry inside. You walk through the world holding memories that feel heavier each year because they no longer have a place to land. You hold dreams that survived wars, heartbreaks, illnesses, disappointments, yet now sit quietly like guests who no longer know if they are welcome. You carry a love that was never fully spoken, a regret that was never fully confessed, a longing that has no name yet grows louder whenever the night arrives. The world keeps moving at a speed you no longer wish to follow, and inside you a different time unfolds slower, deeper, more fragile. There is also the truth of your silence, not the comfortable silence of someone who enjoys peace, but the kind that grows from years of swallowing what you felt, because you believed others had heavier battles than yours. You became the one who listens, the one who steadies the room, the one who endures without asking for anything in return. And though people appreciated your calm presence, they rarely wondered what it cost you to be that person. They never saw the nights when you lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly you began to disappear from your own life. They never noticed the way you laughed to prevent your voice from cracking, the way you agreed to things that wore you down, the way you sacrificed dreams so others could feel safe. This unspoken truth is carved into your chest like a quiet scar, invisible to the world, but always alive beneath your ribs. Sometimes the truth becomes clearer when you think of the younger version of yourself, the one who once believed life had time for everything. You see that young face in old photographs, and you want to reach through the paper and whisper something tender, something protective, something like, "I know what you wanted and I am sorry the world pulled you so far away from yourself." You want to tell that younger self that softness has a price, that sensitivity requires courage, that the soul can be wounded not only by what happens, but also by what never happens. You want to say that love can become distance, that silence can become a slow erosion, that responsibility can quietly consume the very person you were trying to protect. You want to say you did your best even when no one understood the cost. And yet there is something sacred in this truth you carry, because it means you have lived with intensity, even when no one was watching you, felt deeply. Even when the world preferred convenience, you held on to your humanity, even when life encouraged hardness. This hidden truth is a sign that your soul is still alive, still listening, still longing for something real, something that feels like recognition, something that whispers you are not forgotten, even if the world behaves as if you were invisible. There is a strange kind of courage in continuing, despite everything, in walking forward with a heart that still feels too much in pretending strength on days when you only wanted someone to sit beside you and say, I see you, I really do. If this truth echoes inside you even a little, do not let it fade into the background of another ordinary day. Share what you carry in the comments. Let your voice exist here among others who feel just as deeply. And if this space has touched something quiet within you, subscribe so you can return whenever you need a place where your invisible life is finally seen. There is a moment in every life when the slow disappearance begins, not the dramatic kind that people talk about in movies, but the quiet fading that happens inside the ordinary rhythm of a day. It begins so gently that you do not realize what is happening. One morning, you walk into your living room and the silence feels bigger than the room itself. The air seems to hold a memory of voices that once filled the space, but now linger like faint fingerprints on the walls. You tell yourself it is just a normal morning, yet something feels slightly misplaced, as if a part of you stayed behind in a time when the house did not echo so easily. You keep moving, because life requires movement, but the sense of shrinking around the edges follows you from room to room like a shadow that has begun to learn your shape. This slow disappearance is not about solitude alone. It is about the way routine begins to swallow the days in predictable patterns. You make the same coffee in the same cup at the same hour, and the act that once felt grounding now feels like walking in circles. You know the sound the spoon makes against the ceramic, and you know the story your day will tell before it even begins. There is comfort in this familiarity, but there is also a quiet erosion, the kind that wears the heart before the body. You look out the window and watch people rushing somewhere with urgency, and you wonder when your own urgency faded. You no longer feel the pull of the world as strongly as before, and instead of chasing it, you observe it from a distance that keeps growing. Sometimes the disappearance becomes visible in the mirror, not in the wrinkles that arrive with time, but in the expression that no longer tries to meet your gaze. It is that small emptiness around the eyes, a kind of surrender, not to aging, but to invisibility. You search for the spark that once lived there, the one that used to react to possibility, but it flickers faintly, like a candle burning in a room without oxygen. You try to smile to see if it brings the old you back, but the smile feels borrowed, like a photograph of someone you used to be. You touch your face and wonder when it stopped matching the person you feel inside, and when exactly this subtle distance took root. There are days when the fading shows itself in the smallest gestures. You enter a store, and the clerk does not really see you. You speak in a conversation, and your words pass through the room as if made of thin air. You tell a story, and halfway through you realize no one is listening, with the same presence you once received effortlessly. It is not that people are unkind. It is that you have become part of the background, like a familiar object always there, always useful, but rarely noticed. You begin to understand how people become ghosts long before they leave this world, not because they choose it, but because life gradually stops asking for their voice. And yet the sharpest part of this disappearance happens at home, where your memories live. You walk into the bedroom and suddenly it feels too large for one life. The bed holds the shape of your absence on the side where no one sleeps. The hallway feels a little longer each night, as if stretching with silence. Even the clock on the wall seems to tick with a new hesitation. You open a drawer and find an item you have not touched in years, a letter, a photograph, a scarf, and it pulls you into a memory so vivid it hurts. You remember who you were when that object mattered, and for a moment the room feels like a museum of your past selves. You wonder if anyone will ever know these stories, or if they will disappear with you piece by piece as time keeps folding itself inward. There is something strangely tender about witnessing your own vanishing. It reveals the parts of life you overlooked, the moments you rushed through, the faces you assumed would always be there. You start to notice the texture of the air in your home, the soft rhythm of the refrigerator, the creak of the same floorboard you step on every day. You notice how the late afternoon light rests gently on your table, as if trying to comfort you. You begin to understand that disappearing is not sudden. It is a soft process made of dozens of tiny, quiet surrenders, so gentle that you never think to resist them until you realize how much of yourself has thinned. Sometimes you catch yourself talking out loud just to prove you still sound like someone who takes up space. Sometimes you leave the television on, not to watch, but to hear a voice that is not your own. Sometimes you linger longer in the kitchen because the small noise of a boiling pot makes you feel less alone. You behave in ways you would never admit even to your closest people because these quiet rituals are your private attempts to stitch yourself back into existence. In these small gestures, there is a fragile hope that you are still here even if the world no longer pauses to notice. And if any part of this feels like your life, if you recognize even a fraction of this slow, gentle fading, share your experience in the comments, so your voice is heard in a place where silence does not swallow anyone. And if these words touched something in you, consider subscribing so this space can stay open for the parts of you that deserve to be seen. There's a kind of pain that does not simply hurt, but studies you from the inside like a quiet, unwavering observer. Simone Weil believed that suffering strips away everything that is unnecessary until only the truth remains. Not the comfortable truth that we present to others, but the raw truth that stands behind the eyes in the silent hours of the night. She wrote that pain is a form of attention, a force that pins the soul to its own essence. When you first hear this idea, it sounds harsh, almost merciless, but if you sit with it long enough, you begin to understand that she was not glorifying pain. She was revealing its strange ability to uncover what we otherwise spend a lifetime avoiding, the parts of ourselves we hide even from those we love. Imagine a moment when life breaks open unexpectedly. You receive a phone call that changes everything. You lose a person you thought would be with you for decades. You confront a betrayal that leaves a bruise on your spirit. In the first hours, you do not think in complete sentences. The world feels like it is wrapped in a heavy fog, colors dim, sounds dull. You move through the day as if your body belongs to someone else. This is the beginning of what Simone Weil meant. The shock removes the small distractions. The comfort of routine dissolves. What remains is you, only you, the self you rarely face without something to hold on to. Pain forces a kind of stillness that nothing else can produce, and in that stillness, your true thoughts begin to speak. Sometimes pain arrives quietly, not as a violent moment, but as a slow erosion that takes years, a marriage that became a landscape of misunderstandings, a dream you let go of so gently you did not even feel the moment it slipped away, a loneliness that grew like a small plant in the corner of the room until one day it covered the whole house. Simone Weil would say that this too is a form of knowledge. You do not gain it by reading or listening. You earn it. You endure it. The process changes how you see everything. It sharpens your perception. It teaches you to sense the hidden tensions in a conversation. It shows you the difference between real affection and polite gestures. It teaches you how deep the human heart can fall and still find a way to keep beating. There is a strange detail about pain that few people admit. When you suffer deeply, you start noticing the world with an intensity that feels almost supernatural. You notice the way sunlight touches the floor in the late afternoon, and for a moment you feel grateful for something you cannot explain. You notice the tone of your own voice and how it softens when you speak to someone who is also hurting. You develop an almost instinctive awareness of the sorrow in others, even when they try to hide it. Pain rewires your empathy. It expands your capacity to understand. Simone Weil believed that attention is the purest form of love, and suffering forces the soul to pay attention in a way comfort never can. But this does not mean that pain makes you wise automatically. There are people who drown in suffering and become bitter, rigid, closed off. Simone Weil did not deny this. She simply understood that pain presents a door. Whether you walk through it or not depends on something silent and unexplainable inside you. Some people break and stay shattered. Others break and rearrange themselves into something strangely stronger, but not harder. Softer, in fact. More sensitive, more open. The kind of strength that does not shout or demand, but listens deeply and understands without needing to be told. That is the transformation she spoke of. Not glory, not victory, but an inner clarity so subtle that only those who have suffered can recognize it. There are moments in life when you sit alone and remember what you have endured, and you realize that no one truly knows the depth of it. People may know the facts of your story, but they do not know the internal geography of your pain. They do not know the nights you spent awake replaying every decision you ever made. They do not know the way your hands trembled the first time you understood that something precious was gone forever. They do not know how you survived mornings when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain with no summit. And yet you did. You stood up, you stepped forward, You carried the invisible weight with no applause and no witness. Simone Weil believed that this invisible endurance is a kind of spiritual labor, the hardest work a human being ever performs. And still, the most beautiful part of her perspective is this: she saw pain not as punishment, but as something that removes illusions. It shows you who truly cares and who never did. It reveals the difference between what matters and what was merely noise. It teaches you that you do not need as much as you thought you did. It teaches you that tenderness is more powerful than pride, that dignity has nothing to do with success, that love is not measured by ease, but by presence. You begin to see that every struggle shaped you not into something broken, but into someone capable of feeling life with depth and truth. If these words touch a part of your own story, if you have carried pain that no one ever fully saw, share a piece of your experience in the comments so this space can become a home for the truths we rarely speak. And if you feel something awakening inside, you subscribe and stay with us so your inner life continues to be honored and heard. There comes a moment in life when you start to feel the quiet disagreement between your body and your soul. It does not happen suddenly. It arrives slowly, like a soft curtain falling over the years. One day you kneel to tie your shoes, and it takes a second longer than it used to. Another day you stand up from a chair and your legs hesitate as if they are trying to remember a movement they once performed without thinking. These small hesitations gather quietly, like dust settling in the corners of a room, and before you realize it, your body has begun telling a story your soul refuses to accept. Inside, you still feel the same pulse, the same hunger for meaning, the same secret fire that once pushed you into the world with courage and innocence. But on the outside, the world reads a different script, and the dissonance creates a tender ache that words can barely hold. There are mornings when you look at your hands and feel a strange mix of gratitude and betrayal. These hands have held children, carried responsibilities, prepared meals, wiped tears, written letters, worked in silence, created things no one ever knew you created. They carry the history of your life in a language that only you can read. And yet now they tremble slightly when you try to button a shirt, or they feel slower when you reach for a glass of water. It is not the inconvenience that hurts you. It is the reminder that time has touched you without asking permission. Meanwhile, the soul inside you remains ageless, still capable of wonder, still capable of longing, still capable of dreaming with the same intensity you had at 20 or 30. You feel both young and old at the same time, and this contradiction creates a quiet loneliness because so few people talk about it. There are moments when your body moves through the world with caution, but inside, your soul wants to run. You hear a song from your youth, and suddenly you remember the version of yourself who danced without self-consciousness, whose heart beat faster from joy rather than stress, whose future was still an open field instead of a path already half-walked. The memory of that younger self does not fade. It stays with you like a soft echo in the background. But when you try to match the memory with your body in the mirror, the difference feels sharp. Your body has changed, but your inner voice has not aged a day, and the gap between the two can feel like a private grief. Sometimes, you find yourself surrounded by people younger than you, and something unexpected happens. You understand their laughter, their impulses, their restlessness with perfect clarity, because your soul knows exactly what they feel. But they look at you with a kind of gentle distance, as if you belong to a different world. They do not see the inner spark you carry. They only see the surface, and the surface tells them a story they think they already know. You want to tell them that inside you still feel the turbulence of possibility, that inside you still imagine new paths, new loves, new joys. But the thought stays within your heart because you know the world rarely believes in the youth of an older soul. One of the hardest parts of aging is not the physical difficulty. It is the fact that the world begins to treat your soul as if it is old too. You walk into a room and people assume you no longer have desires, ambitions, curiosity. They think aging means shrinking. They think experience means resignation. They confuse wrinkles with silence. But inside you, there is still a voice that whispers, "I am here. I am not done. I am still becoming." Simone Weil believed that the soul remains untouched by time even when the body bends under its weight. She wrote about an inner spark that survives every loss, every disappointment, every year that passes. You feel this truth in the moments when your heart reacts faster than your body can follow, when your mind imagines something your hands can no longer create, when your emotions surge with the intensity of someone half your age. There is a certain wisdom that comes with this mismatch between body and soul. You begin to see life not as a race, but as a fragile miracle. You understand that every breath matters because you have felt its absence. You understand that tenderness matters more than pride because you have lived long enough to see what pride destroys. You understand that love in its simplest form is worth more than all the ambitions you once chased. The body may slow down, but the soul becomes sharper, more perceptive, more capable of recognizing what truly stays and what was only temporary. You learn to appreciate the small things that your younger self overlooked: the warmth of a mug in your hands, the softness of a blanket on your knees, the quiet presence of someone who loves you without explanation. And yet there is still a longing that does not fade, a longing to be seen as you feel on the inside, not as you appear on the outside, a longing to be understood beyond the surface, a longing to be recognized not for what you used to be, but for the soul that still burns in the present moment. This longing is not a weakness. It is proof that your heart has not surrendered to the slow erosion of time. It is proof that your inner life remains alive and attentive. And this is where the body and soul meet again, not in agreement, but in a kind of tender truce. You learn to carry both the fatigue of the body and the restlessness of the soul in the same breath. If these words resonate with the hidden part of you, if you have ever felt younger inside than the world allows you to appear, share your feeling in the comments so your voice can be heard without judgment. And if this space brings you comfort or recognition, subscribe and stay connected with us so your inner truth has a place to breathe. There is an error that almost everyone makes in life, and the most painful part is that we rarely notice it while it is happening. It begins quietly in the early years when you learn to be useful before learning to be honest with yourself. You learn to please before learning to listen to your own needs. You learn to carry responsibilities that were never meant to be yours simply because someone had to do it and you were the one who stepped forward. This is the invisible mistake, the kind that shapes an entire life without ever announcing itself. At first it feels noble. It feels right. It feels like love or duty or strength. But slowly, over the years, you begin to sense that something essential was left behind, not taken from you, but abandoned by you, without even realizing it. Maybe it happened the first time you said yes when you wanted to say no. A simple moment, barely noticeable. Someone asked for help and you were tired, but you agreed anyway. Someone made a choice that affected you, and instead of speaking up, you stayed silent because you did not want to cause conflict. Someone dismissed your feelings, and you told yourself it did not matter because you did not want to appear demanding. These tiny betrayals of the self accumulate quietly. No one sees them. No one applauds them. No one warns you that each one leaves a small crack in the foundation of who you are. And because the cracks are small, you ignore them. You tell yourself it is better to avoid trouble, better to keep the peace, better to be the strong one, better to be the understanding one, better to carry the weight than risk being a burden. But the truth is that each time you step over your own boundaries, you inch further away from yourself. And one day, you wake up and realize you have become the person everyone needs, and no longer the person you needed to be for your own soul. This is the moment when the invisible mistake begins to show its consequences. You feel tired in a way sleep cannot fix. You feel disconnected from your own desires because you have spent years prioritizing everyone else's. You feel a strange sadness that does not come from any single event, but from the long, slow forgetting of your own inner life. It is the ache of someone who has lived outward for too long. Maybe you became the mediator in your family, the one who held everyone together while no one held you. Maybe you became the reliable friend who always listened while your own pain remained unspoken. Maybe you became the partner who sacrificed dreams to keep the home steady, believing that stability mattered more than fulfillment. Maybe you built an identity around being dependable because it was the only way you knew how to feel valuable. But beneath all those roles, there was still the original you, waiting patiently, hoping you would remember them someday. The mistake grows deeper when you confuse endurance with love. You start believing that love means carrying everything without complaint, that devotion means staying silent, that loyalty means ignoring your own needs. You do not notice that you are teaching the world how to treat you. You are telling people, I will manage, I will absorb this, I will adjust, I will stay quiet. You think you are being strong, but you are slowly erasing the boundaries that protect your soul. And the world, without malice, simply takes you at your word. One of the most heartbreaking signs of this mistake is the moment you realize that people have become accustomed to you giving more than you receive. Not because they are cruel, but because you trained them to believe your needs were small. At first you tell yourself it is fine, you can handle it. But then a day arrives when you need help and no one notices. You feel invisible not because the world is unkind, but because you disappeared from your own life long before others stopped seeing you. Yet the most surprising part of all this is how quietly the truth reveals itself. It is not through tragedy or confrontation. It often arrives in a soft moment. You sit alone at the end of the day and feel a sudden heaviness in your chest. You cannot explain it. Nothing terrible happened. No one said anything hurtful, but you feel an emptiness not caused by loss, but by absence, your own absence from your own life. It is a strange feeling, almost like grief. You are grieving the person you were meant to become. You are grieving the dreams that faded without a farewell. You are grieving the self you protected so little because you were too busy protecting everyone else. And yet inside this realization, there is something quietly powerful. Because the moment you recognize the mistake is the moment you begin to return to yourself. Awareness is not comfortable. It stings, it exposes, it confronts, but it also invites you home. It invites you to ask for what you need, to speak when something hurts, to say no without guilt, to choose rest without apology, to reclaim the parts of you that you left behind in the name of being good or strong or reliable. The soul never stops waiting for your return. It whispers through exhaustion. It calls through loneliness. It reaches for you through every ache you do not understand. If you have ever felt this quiet distance from yourself, if you have ever realized you gave too much for too long, or if you are trying to find your way back to your own voice, share your thoughts in the comments so we can honor that journey together. And if these words touch something tender inside, you consider subscribing so your inner life continues to have a space where it is finally seen and valued. There are moments in life when the silence around you becomes so deep that it feels almost physical, like a presence pressing gently against your ribs. It is the kind of silence that arrives not only from the world outside, but also from the place inside you, where hope once lived without fear. This silence feels different from loneliness. It feels different from sadness. It carries a mystery that words cannot fully explain. It is in these moments that many people begin to wonder why the divine, or whatever name you give to what is greater than you, feels so impossibly distant. You reach out with your thoughts, with your longing, with your quiet questions, and all you meet is stillness. A stillness so vast that your own voice seems to disappear inside it. Simone Weil believed that this silence is not abandonment, but attention. A severe kind of attention, the kind that watches without interfering, the kind that waits for you to hear something deeper than your own fear. She wrote that absence can be a form of presence, a demanding one, a presence that forces the soul to stand alone so it can discover its own strength. At first, this thought seems almost cruel. How could silence ever be a sign of care? But then you remember the moments when someone truly listened to you, not interrupting, not filling the space with advice or judgments, just listening, completely, fully, entirely. That kind of presence feels like silence too, a silence that does not pull away but leans in. Sometimes you feel this silence most intensely after loss. When someone you loved is no longer there, the world around you seems to stop speaking. The places you shared become hollow. The routines you built together feel strange, as if they no longer belong to you. You look for signs in the smallest things, a flicker of light, a sound, a memory returning at the exact moment you needed it. Some days you find comfort, other days you find nothing. And it is on those days, the empty ones, that the silence feels like a test of endurance, of trust, of your ability to keep moving even when you cannot hear any reassurance. Simone Weil would say, "This silence does not come to punish you. It comes to purify your attention, to strip away illusions so that you can see what remains when everything else has been taken." There is a strange detail about silence that people rarely talk about. If you sit with it long enough, it begins to reveal the noise you carry inside you, memories you avoided, emotions you suppressed, truths you did not want to face because facing them would require change. When the world was loud, these inner voices were easy to drown out. But in silence, they grow clear. You begin to hear the part of you that has been asking for rest or forgiveness or direction. You begin to notice the heaviness you have been carrying for years without understanding its origin. And in that clarity, something shifts. The silence becomes less like a void and more like a mirror reflecting back the parts of yourself that were waiting to be acknowledged. There are days when the silence feels unfair. You ask for help in your heart. You whisper a question in the darkness. You wait for an answer, and nothing comes. You wonder if you are speaking into an emptiness that does not care. But then you recall the times when someone trusted your strength enough not to intervene, when they believed that you could walk through something without being rescued. Maybe the divine does the same. Maybe the silence is saying, I know you can survive this. I know you can sit with this pain without collapsing. I know you can discover something inside yourself that you would never find if I filled this silence with easy comfort. This is not abandonment. It is an invitation for the soul to hear itself. Simone Weil believed that when everything external disappears, when every familiar source of guidance or reassurance grows quiet, that is when the inner world expands. She compared it to a dark room where the only light comes from a single small flame. Because there is nothing else to distract you, that tiny flame becomes unbelievably bright. In the same way, when the world stops responding to your questions, you begin to discover a strength, a depth, a clarity that was always inside you but drowned out by noise. The silence becomes a teacher, a painful one, yes, but a teacher nonetheless. There is also a tenderness in this silence, though it may take years to recognize it. It shows itself in the moments when you suddenly feel calm without knowing why. In the moments when a memory brings comfort instead of sorrow. In the moments when a problem you have struggled with for months suddenly becomes clear. These are small signals that something inside you is listening even when the outside world seems indifferent. The silence does not always give you answers, but it gives you space. And sometimes space is the only thing the soul needs to breathe again. If you have ever felt this deep and unsettling silence, if you have ever questioned why everything went quiet when you needed reassurance the most, share your experience in the comments so your voice can be part of a community that understands this hidden side of life. And if this reflection made you feel seen or less alone, consider subscribing so you can return to a space where your inner world is honored and your quiet truths are welcomed without judgment. There is a truth that almost no one wants to face, a truth that feels sharp the moment you let it enter your chest. It is the realization that no one is coming to rescue you, not in the way you once imagined, not in the way you quietly hoped during the hardest nights of your life. For years you waited without even admitting to yourself that you were waiting. You hoped someone would finally understand you without explanation, that someone would step into your silence and say, I see how tired you are. Let me help you carry this. You believed that love or family or time would eventually soften the weight you have been carrying alone. But slowly, painfully, the truth begins to reveal itself, not as cruelty, but as a kind of awakening. You realize that the world keeps moving, people keep moving, life keeps moving, and you are the one who must decide what to do with the pieces you hold. This truth does not arrive suddenly. It approaches in small moments that you barely notice. You are struggling and someone says they will call you later, but they forget. You express something vulnerable and the listener changes the subject. You hope for comfort, but the room remains quiet. At first you feel disappointment, then you feel confusion. Eventually, you feel clarity. A clarity that hurts, but also shakes something awake inside you. It is the understanding that you must learn to be your own shelter, your own listener, your own witness. It is frightening because it removes every illusion that once made you feel safe. But once the fear settles, something unexpected happens. You begin to feel a small pulse of strength, the kind that was always there, but hidden beneath years of hoping someone else would acknowledge it first. There is a moment many people never speak about out loud, a moment when you look at your life and understand that the reason you feel abandoned is not because others wanted to neglect you, but because they never truly understood the depth of what you needed. They were dealing with their own storms, their own fears, their own invisible wounds. You realize that even the people who loved you deeply could not fully save you because they never truly saw the battles you fought in silence. Not because they did not care, but because your pain lived in a place only you could reach. This truth is uncomfortable because it strips away the belief that someone else holds the key to your healing. And yet, it carries a freedom so profound that it almost feels like stepping into new air. Simone Weil believed that truths which frighten us are often the ones capable of liberating us. She saw the human tendency to cling to illusions, not because we are weak, but because we are afraid of the emptiness that comes after the illusion breaks. But what most people forget is that emptiness is not nothingness. Emptiness is space, space where something real can finally grow. When you stop expecting others to save you, you begin to see your own life with a clarity that almost feels like light breaking through a long, forgotten window. You notice the choices you avoided making. You notice the habits that kept you small. You notice the dreams you postponed waiting for permission. And more than anything, you notice the quiet voice within you that has been trying to speak for years. One of the harshest but most illuminating truths is that relying on someone else to validate your worth turns your life into a waiting room. You keep postponing decisions, waiting for someone to say you are enough. You keep postponing healing, waiting for someone to apologize. You keep postponing joy, waiting for the right moment or the right companion or the right version of yourself. But life does not pause just because you are waiting. Days pass, years pass, and nothing changes until you decide to step out of the waiting room and walk into your own life with both hands open. This is the terrifying freedom that Simone Weil understood so deeply. The freedom that comes when you realize the responsibility to live is entirely yours. There is something strangely beautiful in this realization. When you stop expecting someone else to fix the pain inside you, you also stop expecting them to fill the emptiness inside you. You begin to understand that the parts of you that feel broken are not defects, but invitations. Invitations to reconnect with the parts of your soul you abandoned while trying to be loved, understood, appreciated. You begin to feel a shift so subtle you barely recognize it at first. You start listening to your own needs without feeling selfish. You start protecting your own energy without explaining yourself. You start creating small rituals that help you feel grounded. You begin to reclaim your life piece by piece, like someone restoring an old painting with patience and care. The truth that no one is coming to save you is frightening, but the truth that you can save yourself is transformative. It liberates you from false expectations. It frees you from resentment. It opens a path where your strength does not need permission to exist. For the first time, you feel the possibility of living not as someone waiting to be chosen, but as someone choosing themselves with intention and dignity. And this shift, though quiet, becomes the beginning of a deeper kind of peace, a peace that grows from the inside out. If you have ever felt the sting of this truth, or if something in your heart stirred while reading these words, share your thoughts in the comments so your voice becomes part of a living conversation. And if this reflection touched you in any way, consider subscribing so you always have a place where your inner life is honored and your quiet truths are welcomed without hesitation. There is a moment in every life when something small inside you begins to shift. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. No one else notices it, and for a while, even you barely register it. It might happen while you are washing dishes, or sitting alone in the late afternoon light, or waking up from a dream you cannot remember. It is a single quiet thought that passes through your mind almost like a breeze. A thought that says, maybe I do not have to keep living this way. It is fragile, almost shy, the kind of thought you might normally push aside because it feels too hopeful, too daring, too different from the heaviness you have grown accustomed to carrying. But this time, it lingers, it stays, it waits for you to acknowledge it. This tiny internal movement is what many people overlook because they expect change to arrive like a thunderstorm. They think transformation must be loud or bold or instantly recognizable. But the truth is that real change often begins in silence, with a decision so small you could almost miss it. It might be the decision to step outside for fresh air when you feel the weight of the day pressing down on you. It might be the decision to say no to something that drains your energy. It might be the decision to finally tell yourself that you deserve more than survival. These small acts become the first cracks in the wall you built around yourself, the wall you once needed but no longer belong inside. Simone Weil believed that the smallest gestures can carry the greatest spiritual force. She understood that a shift in intention, even one that no one else sees, can redirect the entire path of a life. When you choose to turn inward with honesty, when you choose to listen to your own needs instead of dismissing them, when you choose to show yourself the tenderness you always offered others, something in the soul stirs with quiet recognition. It is like a seed finally receiving water after years of drought. The seed does not erupt into a tree in an instant, but it begins to live. That beginning is everything. There are days when this small inner rebellion might feel almost foolish. You make a gentle change, and then the world remains just as heavy, just as indifferent, just as demanding. You start to wonder if these small choices matter at all. But if you look closely, you will notice something subtle happening. When you allow yourself to breathe for one extra moment instead of rushing, your thoughts become clearer. When you allow yourself to rest instead of pushing through exhaustion, your heart stops feeling so brittle. When you allow yourself to say enough when something hurts you, your soul grows a little less silent. These changes are not dramatic, but they are real, and they build on each other like the steady steps of someone finding their footing again after a long fall. Sometimes the smallest shift is simply telling the truth to yourself. Maybe you admit that you are lonely even though you pretend to be fine. Maybe you admit that you are tired of being strong all the time. Maybe you admit that something inside you still hopes for a life that feels meaningful instead of mechanical. These confessions are powerful because they break the spell of numbness. They remind you that your feelings are not inconveniences. They are signals pointing toward the direction your soul wants to go. When you honor them, you reclaim a part of yourself that you thought was gone forever. There are moments when the rebellion takes shape in unexpected ways. You decide to open the window to let sunlight touch your skin. You decide to read a book you loved years ago because you miss the person you were when you first read it. You decide to call someone you trust and tell them something real. You decide to sit quietly instead of forcing productivity. You decide to forgive yourself for something you have carried for far too long. These are not grand gestures, but they awaken something ancient and tender inside you. They remind you that your soul has not given up on you, even on the days when you almost gave up on yourself. The beauty of this subtle transformation is that it does not depend on anyone else. It does not require approval or praise. It begins the moment you stop treating yourself as an afterthought. It begins the moment you allow your own inner voice to matter. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you start to feel a new kind of strength building beneath your ribs. Not the strength that comes from being hardened by life, but the strength that comes from being honest with yourself. A strength that is soft, yet unbreakable. A strength that does not fight against life, but rises within it. The most profound part of this inner shift is how it changes the way you see yourself. You begin to understand that your worth was never dependent on how much you could endure or how little you asked for. You begin to notice the parts of you that survived, despite everything. You begin to realize that your longing for meaning is not weakness, but evidence of a soul still alive. And in this realization, something inside you opens like a door that was locked for years. You step through it without fanfare, without announcements, simply because it feels like the first true step you have taken in a long time. If anything in these words resonates with the small, quiet rebellion awakening inside you, share your experience in the comments so your inner shift can be seen and honored. And if this space brings you comfort or recognition, consider subscribing, so your journey has a place where it can unfold with gentleness, dignity, and truth. There comes a moment at the end of every journey, a moment where words soften and something inside you becomes quiet in a way that does not feel like defeat, but like release. It is the kind of silence that arrives after you have told the truth to yourself without running from it. A silence that does not demand anything from you and does not promise anything either. It simply rests beside you, like an old friend who understands that presence is more important than answers. This kind of silence is rare. It comes only when the soul has traveled through its own shadows and returned not with triumph but with honesty. You can feel this silence in your breath, in the way your body finally loosens its grip on emotions held for years, in the way your chest rises without the familiar weight pressing down. It is the silence that comes after you have cried long enough to know the tears were necessary. The silence that comes after you have carried pain with dignity and finally realized you do not have to carry it alone anymore. The silence that comes after forgiving yourself for all the times you abandoned your own heart because you did not know how to protect it. In this quiet space, the soul does not ask for anything. It simply allows itself to exist. Simone Weil believed that true prayer is not asking, but listening, not seeking miracles, but offering the small, trembling truth of your existence with nothing added and nothing held back. And perhaps that is what this moment is. Not a request, not a plea, but a kind of offering. A surrender that is not about giving up, but about letting go of the illusion that you must earn your right to breathe, to feel, to be here. There is a sacredness in accepting yourself exactly as you are, with all the years you have lived, all the mistakes you have made, all the beauty you never recognized, all the love you gave even when it was not returned. This final breath of the soul does not ask for blessings. It does not demand explanations. It simply acknowledges the strange miracle of being alive in a world that often feels too fast, too loud, too indifferent. You sit inside this quiet and realize that surviving was not a small thing. Enduring was not a small thing. Waking up every morning, even when your heart felt too heavy, was not a small thing. You carried yourself through storms no one else saw, and you did it with a tenderness you rarely acknowledge. In this soft ending, you finally allow yourself to feel gratitude, not for the world, not for the outcome, but for your own persistence. You begin to sense that the silence is not empty after all. It is full of every version of you that once felt invisible. It is full of the memories you thought were lost. It is full of the voices of people you loved, some still present and some gone, but still echoing in the chambers of your heart. It is full of the light you tried to protect, even on days when it felt like it was fading. This silence is not loneliness, it is presence. It is the presence of your own soul, finally sitting with you, without judgment, without expectation, without fear. And when you allow yourself to feel it fully, something inside you softens and opens, like a hand unclenching after years of holding on too tightly. There is a gentleness here that does not need to be earned. You do not need to prove your worth to this moment. You do not need to explain your pain. You do not need to justify your regrets. You simply breathe, and the breath itself becomes an act of recognition, a recognition that you have lived deeply, even in the moments when you felt numb, that you have loved fiercely, even in the moments when you felt unworthy, that you have carried more than most people will ever know and still found a way to keep your heart alive. This quiet is the beginning of peace, not the end of your story. And now, as we reach this final space together, I want to thank you. Thank you for listening with your whole being. Thank you for allowing these words to touch the places inside you that rarely see the light. Thank you for sitting in the silence with honesty and courage. You could have turned away. You could have distracted yourself, but you stayed. You opened yourself to a truth that many avoid, and that alone is an act of profound bravery. If this journey meant something to you, if it awakened even a small spark inside your heart, I invite you to share your truth in the comments. Your words might be the exact whisper someone else needs to hear. And if you want to continue exploring the deeper parts of your soul with me, consider subscribing so these reflections can accompany you whenever you need them. As we close, take one final breath. Let it be soft. Let it be real. Let it be yours. And now, when you are ready, click on the next video appearing on your screen. Continue walking with me through these quiet landscapes of the human soul. Your journey does not end here. It simply shifts into a new beginning.